No? Yeah. Just about everyone, right? And why do people do that, you think?
Because you have habits.
Because you have your habits. I mean, Nike got it right, just do it, right? I tend to think everything needs to be perfect before I hit go, right? And, you know, I've got to do this, or I've got to research that, or I've got to check the pricing on this, or I'm not quite sure how to do it. So it all just kind of sit there, right? So just do it. Why else do you think there are some folks that are more successful than others in life?
Their fears are different.
Their fears are different, okay? So they're fearless maybe, or maybe not completely fearless, but not afraid to fail, right? That saying, okay to fail as long as you're failing forward.
Your way to success.
What else? They're fearless. They just do it. They're not afraid to fail. What's the saying that you guys hear me say here all the time? It's
But you focus on experience.
But what we're doing isn't rocket science, right? As much as I'd like to say that we're all, you know, geniuses, there are some. It's simple and easy, right? So it's being committed to doing the tasks, the mundane tasks that none of us look forward to doing, like regenerative or not. You know, things that most folks don't like to do, but not only doing it, but doing it on a consistent basis, right? So it's a commitment to that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 6 personal perspectives and some of the things that, you know, we can focus on that will help with that. Well, hello. Oh, I love the t-shirt. No, it's okay. Come on in. So what is it that differentiates those who achieve at the highest level from those who don't seem to accomplish as much? And what they say is it really boils down to 3 things: your attitudes, your approach to life, and mindset. And I would say mindset is probably the biggest there, right? Because that's the one that we wrestle with the most. At least I do. I'll speak for myself. Does anybody else fall into that category? Constantly wrestling with that mindset. In fact, I probably do it several times throughout every day, where I'm wrestling with some sort of mindset issue. So, in defining the 6 personal perspectives, the first one is committing to that self-mastery, right? The 80-20 principle, and we're going to go through these a little bit more in detail. Moving from E to P. Who knows what that is? Moving from E to P. What does that mean?
Entrepreneurial to
purposeful. You got it. You got it. All right. Make being learning based the foundation of your action plan. Who in the room feels it's important to be learning based? Yeah, absolutely. Right? We're always learning. Gosh, 17 years in the business, and I still feel like there's so much more for me to learn. Removing your limiting beliefs. That's a tough one. Those drunk monkeys that like to follow us around, right? And then being accountable. That's a tough one too. Most folks don't like to be held accountable, yet I find that when you implement that in your life, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, and I think Zach would say the same thing. When you implement that in your life, whether it's through a MAPS coach or just an accountability partner or a team member, or maybe it's a significant other, introducing that accountability changes everything. So you're going to nail it. You're going to master this. That's the self-mastery. The 80-20, focusing on your big rocks, right? If you focus on the 20%, the most important part of your business, what do you think that is? What's part of that 20%?
lead gen.
Your lead gen, right? If you just simply focused on your lead generation every day, do you think that might solve the bulk of your problems? Absolutely. All right, being purposeful, about breaking through your ceiling of achievements, of moving from that entrepreneurial to purposeful. Are you willing to be taught? Are you always pursuing learning? And then, of course, unlimit your thinking and your success, and then finding that accountability partner. You own it. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you, right? You have to own it. So I want you to just take a minute and maybe write down. You don't have to share it, but think about 3 things that you'd like to accomplish. What 3 things would you like to accomplish in your life? Just take a few minutes and write those down. So think about, what would you do that you're waiting to get done because you think you will be here forever? Oh my gosh, my list is long. From a business and personal perspective. I'm not gonna call you guys out on it, but is there anybody that wants to share? Something that you wrote down? Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind is just having that financial freedom.
Mhm.
Work to play and invest. Work to invest to play.
Okay. Just putting a plan in place in order to get there. Have you done that yet?
It's a continuous work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that goes along with quality of life.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody's, I mean, if you look at everybody's goal in life, what do we want? We want quality of life.
Absolutely.
We want that financial freedom. We want, you know, to surround ourselves with happy people and leave a legacy. I think that all bundles into quality of life.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like time blocking. You can talk about goals, you can think about goals, but if you're not putting effective plans and systems in place to help you achieve them, then they're just probably going to remain, you know, goals. So taking time to reflect, and this is a great time of year to do it at the beginning of a new year, is, you know, how are you doing with your goal? Where are you at? There was a post, again, not long ago, let's see, January, February, you know, at the end of next month, we're already going to be through the first quarter, right? So 25% of the way to your goal is where you should be at the end of March. Stop and think about that for a second. How does that make you feel? You know, does that make you nervous? Are you crushing it because you knew that last October is when you needed to start goal planning, and that the activities that you were doing in October were going to show up when? November, December, January, right? So what we're doing today is showing up 30 days from now. So we're already working on May business. Today we're working on our business in May. So if we're not at 25% of the goal by the end of March, we're already behind the 8 ball. And that's not to be Debbie Downer. You can get caught up, right? You can double up on your activities and you can get caught up, but it's so important to know what that goal is and know what you're working towards. So committing to self-mastery, the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. So we just talked about knowing your goals. Who in here has taken the KPA? Who in here doesn't know what the KPA is? Okay, there's a couple of you. So the KPA is the Keller Personality Assessment. We can send that to you, by the way. There's no cost to do it. You just need to let either myself or Katie know that you would like it. It's a link that is emailed to you. Yes.
How is that different from the DISC?
It's much more detailed, much more in-depth. And so what that will help you with, and what I recommend that you do if you do want to take the KPA is schedule a time to meet with myself when the results come back so I can go over it with you. It's very different just reading it yourself than having someone actually walk you through the results and talk to you know, about what they look like, and, you know, just visit with you a little bit about how they hit you and if you think it's accurate. But that is a great tool that will help you uncover your strengths and your weaknesses, right? Because we all have them, whether we like to admit it or not. And we want to, you know, play to our strengths and leverage to our weaknesses, right? Whether it's a tool, whether it's another person, whether it's extra training in a certain area. But that is the start of committing to self-mastery, is knowing your goals and then knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and then knowing how to work on both your strengths and weaknesses, right?
What's the cost of the KP?
There is no cost to you.
Really?
Yep, the Market Center covers that cost.
I took
Yeah.
it last week. It took about 45 minutes.
Yeah. Do you have the report back? Did you send it to you? Okay, perfect. And what'd you think? Do you feel like it hit the nail on the head? Do you feel like it was pretty accurate? It was.
Yeah, I think it was pretty accurate. I mean,
Okay.
there's
Did you
things-
find it useful?
Yeah, there's things that I didn't know about myself. But if you think about it, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
And things that you did know about yourself, probably, right? That you weren't willing to maybe admit. But when I first became aware of tools like this, and the DISC was probably one of the very first ones that came out, and then they had the ABA, and now they have the KPA, is I made my husband take it right away, and then I made all my kids take it right away. And it really is a fantastic tool to help you communicate with folks who aren't necessarily, you know, made up the same way that you are, right? It certainly did that. And then what ended up happening was I began to study it, and it became a very, very useful tool in my business. when I'm meeting with clients, when I'm meeting with, potential recruits, when I'm holding an open house, being able to recognize certain personality traits in folks when I'm communicating with them and how I need to mirror and match and adjust myself to that. And it's not to be, someone who's not being authentic. I still am who I am, but at an open house. So for an example, I'm an off the charts ID. So I love to meet people. I'm very personable, but I'm also very direct and driven, right? And so when I was holding open houses, for anyone who's been to my open house class, before, the example I give is you're coming to the door. Hi, I'm Erin. How are you? Thanks so much for coming out today. How did you happen to hear about the open house? So I don't know Jody well enough to know where she falls on that disc scale, but just kind of by that, either she's just nervous because I'm putting her on the spot for Jody because she's a guest, or maybe she is a little bit more of that subdued kind of S or C, right? That if I'm meeting her with a bunch of energy and I'm being really direct with her, likely what's going to happen? I'm just going to scare her away and she's going to, retreat. If she's a high I, she and I are going to be best friends by the time she leaves the open house, right? But what happened was I met everyone with that energy all the time. So I just assumed because I was that way, they were that way as well. Bless you. And I quickly discovered that was not the case. There were plenty of people I'm sure that I scared off along the way before I, became familiar with this. So this is a great tool. Let us know if you want to use it. And part of you being able to commit to that self-mastery, and thanks, Jody, for letting me put you on the spot there. So when you're in the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make one master of, that's what makes one master of a subject. So remember that it's a journey, not an event. So to Michelle's point, you're ever evolving, right, into this person and perfecting in order to achieve that self-mastery. And it really is taking all of the information and all of those steps. It's like pieces to a puzzle and putting them together in order to achieve that self-mastery. So committing to that, an exercise that I'm going to have you guys do is just list 3 obstacles. When you think about the goals that you wrote down earlier, think about 3 obstacles that you think might hinder your achievement for the goal that you wrote down, and just jot those down for me. Anybody care to share what one of those obstacles might be?
I'll share your support behind you.
Okay. So lack of support
Lack
maybe
of support.
behind you, or the right people.
The right cheerleader.
Yeah, the right cheerleader. Okay. Exactly. Anyone else? What's another? Yourself. Yeah. How so? Is that like a mindset thing for you, Beth, or
Overanalyzing, self-doubting.
that analysis paralysis creeps in? Yeah. Yeah, I get guilty of that as well. Did you have something, Deb?
Just staying focused.
Yeah. That's
You know,
tough.
creating that habit and continually working the process.
Jennifer, was yours the same?
No, mine was not knowing where to start. The goal that I have, where to start.
Okay.
So,
So if I put you on the spot right now, where are some places you think you could start?
well, my goal was organization.
Okay.
Decluttering.
Mhm.
And it's just been, I just don't know where to start the process. It's like Monica's closet, friends.
Start there.
Exactly. Right,
I
start
love
there,
it.
right. So I think the likeliest is just to make a list and just follow the list and start. Just do one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Yeah, oh yeah.
Pinterest has a great organizational account. I mean, you can
Yeah.
get everything on Pinterest, but
I
they have
am
a great
just, I'm
organization.
such an
Don't
unorganized
even look at
person.
me
So
like
maybe what it is you just start with time blocking 30 minutes a day to spend on organizing. And then you're just, as soon as that 30-minute clock is done, you're done. You stop regardless of what sort of phase you're in. But if you're just chipping away at it every day, right? And you could apply that to other things. besides just
Oh, for sure.
organization.
So can I ask, piggybacking off of that, because there's always, where do we start? And I kind of started back with my database, but in the back of my mind, I'm looking forward to Command covering all those questions for me. Isn't Command going to help me put some organization into my chaos?
Yeah, we
That's
certainly hope
The
so.
promise that I'm hoping for,
Yeah.
you know.
That's certainly what we hope
We
so.
still have to implement it. We still have to.
That is
Create to
correct, but
it,
it's there that will actually work.
I will share this, but I've already downloaded my database on there and it is so easy. And it's like so easy, unbelievably easy.
Awesome.
Do we know what's all involved with that?
We don't yet. I mean, we don't. And we'll learn more at family reunion. And you're going, yeah. So you'll be one of the first probably to be able to get some of that insight. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be a year of all of us learning together, and creating and implementing classes when we come back as those programs start to roll out so that we can help one another with bridging that learning curve and that gap. So Jennifer, you have strengths, right? We also have strengths, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. When you think about the organization that you want to apply, and have in your life, what do you think are some of your strengths that can help you overcome that obstacle?
I think once I put my mind to it, it'll get done. So my drive. What I'm thinking about is organizing files and emails and that type of thing. So what are my strengths there? I think I have the right people that I can get help from.
So finding the right people is
I need to find a cheerleader or someone that can help do things. So I don't know, maybe that's why I've done it, because I don't have any strengths in that area.
No, you do.
So,
would
Well,
you say that you're good at delegation? Like
I know, I'm gonna hire
I know
her.
you
Yeah, I hire her.
transfer our database.
I hire her.
So here's what I know about you. You're a master networker. That's what I know about you with 100% certainty. So I gotta believe that there are people in your world, whether you realize it or not, that you can tap into that have that skill set that can help you. And if you don't, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So you just have to put the word out. You just have to put it out to the universe and let people know what it is, what your goal is, right?
Sure.
Because when we share a goal, what happens?
You get accountable for it.
You're accountable.
Right. What happens? You put it out to the universe. What happens with that goal? Someone's going to remind you of it. Someone's going to ask you how it's going.
Well, I think part of that goes with, we know people, but it's put it on that calendar. Make a date and put it on the calendar. Don't just keep having the conversation about it.
Yeah.
Put it on the calendar.
Yep, you're right.
Is it maybe also finding that accountability partner to hold you accountable to? Okay, Jennifer, you said by March 1st you were going to have a system in place. So it's February 15th. How you doing? Where you at with that? Right? So it's putting it out there, finding an accountability partner.
Had almost snowing.
Yeah, she worked.
She's so about it.
She's like, I'm so bored. What do you do? I have no problem sitting around doing nothing.
All right. So we're talking about some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses that will get in your way. Think about some of those. What are some of those weaknesses? And boy, we can come up with a lot of those, can't we?
Yeah.
I call those
That's easier.
also excuses. Maybe weaknesses are excuses, vice versa, whatever. So committing to the 80-20 principle. Who has a good way of explaining what that means exactly? Anybody in the room? You guys familiar with the principle? So there's a pattern of predictable imbalance in life. It's called the 80-20 principle, right? And what they say is if you focus on the most important tasks of your day, the 20%, that the 80% will take care of itself. Not literally, but almost take care of itself. So we're not going to watch the video, but they refer to them as the big rocks, right? So we talked about lead generation being a big rock. What else could be a big rock?
Time management.
Time management is usually one of the other big rocks, right? Because you have to allow for that in order to focus on the lead generation. And then what do you think another one is? We talked about it earlier. Deb, I think you brought it up. begins with the letter C. Commitment, right? So the time management, the commitment, the lead generation. So committing to it, scheduling time blocking. Who in here is time? Who time blocks? Be honest. Zero judgment. Just a few of you. For those who don't, why aren't you? Why aren't you doing it?
Excuses. Because it's
Squirrels.
Squirrels,
Yeah.
yeah. I start out the day with what I should do, what I know I need to do with time blocking. And then somebody calls, and then the title company calls, and then, the inspector can't get in. And it's squirrels. That's a really good.
Multiple schools.
Do you think
Multiple squirrels.
So here's what I tell people. You can time block until you're blue in the face. Like my calendars are beautiful. They're color coded. I've got a Google calendar. I've got an Outlook calendar. I carry around a legal pad. Like I am time blocked to death. But those time blocking mechanisms do me no good if I do not protect that schedule fiercely. Like I have to protect that schedule fiercely. So I know myself well enough to know that when I wake up in the morning, if the first thing I do is pop on Facebook, I'm already 30 minutes behind the day already because it's a distraction, right? So I have to force myself not to allow myself to look at that, until I've got to the office or until I'm done with my appointment or till whenever it is I've told myself I can look at it, right? Because we can find all kinds of distractions throughout the day to keep us doing our 20%. And most of us do. Why? Because it's a lot more fun than doing our 20%.
Well, we welcome them. Sometimes we welcome those
Yeah.
distractions because the 20% is the hard part.
But the times that you don't welcome those distractions that need to be handled, that blows up your whole schedule, that's stuff that I struggle with.
I think part of it though, I think about the business 25 years ago when the book was in play. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there was no computers, you had a book and that didn't come out and you were lucky if you got to see the book, And what did we do then? We didn't have our phones, 20 years ago, we had people come in the office and sign, amendments and contracts and different things like that. So we cripple ourselves because we don't protect ourselves
It's a
and
double-edged
say
sword.
it's okay for me to call them back in 20 minutes when I'm done doing what my time block says I'm doing. And I think we're so guilty of it because, like I said, we welcome the distractions sometimes because
Absolutely.
it's easy to pick up the phone. It's hard to sit there for 30 minutes and do what our goal is,
But it's different for your age range. Like for me, probably my biggest distraction would be either my aging parents calling me, and those things totally interrupt. For a younger, with kids get sick, and every age bracket has their own distractions, which are also the things that propel you forward.
Yeah.
So,
And that's just it, Michelle. We all have stuff, right? We all have stuff, whether it's little kids, sick kids, aging parents, divorce, death, whatever. We all have stuff. And I'm going to share with you what a Bold coach said one time that kind of hit me between the eyes. And I wish I could remember who it was so I could give him credit. But what he said was, there is no such thing as an emergency in real estate. There's no such thing as an emergency in real estate. No one's going to lose their life over a delayed closing or a document that needs to get somewhere, right? So the way that I look at it now is my family knows in the morning when I do my lead generation what those hours are. And they know, don't call me during those hours. Don't email me. Don't text me. Don't try to get a hold of me. Don't schedule appointments for me during those hours. Unless someone is in an ambulance on the way to the hospital, I'm just unavailable during those hours, right? And so the important people in my life know when that time is, and they respect that schedule because I require them, I require that of them. So if you're doing lead gen from 8 to 11 every day, can most things in a typical day wait until after 11 a.m.? Yeah, 99% of the things that you need to do in your day can wait until after 11 a.m. I don't schedule closings before 11 a.m. I don't schedule appointments for, to meet with buyer. And when I'm in team mode, guys, right? So I'm putting myself in your shoes. If I'm doing a buyer consultation or I'm going on a listing appointment or, doing a CMA, those things do not hit my calendar until after 11 a.m. because I'm doing lead gen from 8 to 11 every single day, right? So It's focusing on the big rocks so that you can get 80% of the results that you want. All right? Anything else you guys want to add to that at all? Okay. Who's read The One Thing? Yeah, great book. And, you know, the philosophy essentially is focusing on that one thing, get it down really, really, really well before you what? Before you move on or layer something else in, right? So when you're coming back from those workshops, when you're coming back from those trainings and you're full of all this vim and vigor and energy and great ideas and you can't wait to implement, pick one thing. I think we come back from those things and we think we need to implement it all right away and then nothing gets done. So just pick one thing, implement that, get the systems down for that, get really, really good at that, and then layer in your next thing that you want to implement. So create that to-do list. Okay, we'll skip over the exercises. This is more of a class that maybe we'll put on the training calendar at some point in time. Does anyone in here use a 411 worksheet? Who doesn't know what a 411 worksheet is? Anybody? Okay, so y'all know what it is, but no one's using it? Is that what you want me to believe? Okay, yeah, all right. So a very useful tool in helping you put your goals into action, right? Breaking them down systematically. So your overriding goal. So you want to take and break it down, and some people will do, you know, personal, professional, financial, and they'll put their annual goals at the top. So up here, I don't know if you guys can see it, so I'm going to read it. So under job, let's just use that as an example. The annual goal is 24 listings, 18 buyer sales, 60 quality listings, 150 listing appointments. And then they break that down monthly. What is it that they need to be doing in order to achieve that yearly goal? Well, they've got to go on, I'm having a hard time doing this, 5 listing appointments, have at least 2 listings sold, 2 buyers in escrow, 3 buyers closed, 13 listing appointments, lead generate at least 3 hours a day. And then they get even more specific. So that's their monthly. Week by week, what do they need to be doing in order to achieve that goal? So breaking those goals down to really finite detail so that you know what you're supposed to be doing on a weekly, monthly basis in order to achieve that annual goal. I'll upload a blank 411 into the file section on our closed Facebook group, so that if you guys want to start implementing and utilizing this. And I recommend if you're going to start utilizing this, find an accountability partner in the office who is also willing to fill out a 411 and commit to meeting with each other once a week and checking in with one another. You don't have to physically be in the same room. It could be over the phone, right? Check in with one another once a week to figure out where you're at with your goals, okay? People think there's never enough time to be successful, but there is when you time block it. Boy, that is the truth, right? We will always manage to find time to do things that are important to us, don't we? Somehow. Yeah.
You know what's really funny? I just hung up a squirrel calendar in my office.
Was that intentional or did that happen?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to squash the squirrels.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is there a trend, or is there, what do they call those little wheels?
Hamster wheel?
Hamster wheel.
Yeah. All right, so let's just quickly go over the 4 keys to time blocking. Being consistent enough to set a habit, right? You've got to have the consistency in there or it's just not gonna work. Being thoughtful and purposeful about the items you list on your calendar, right? Be selective. If you only have 24 hours in a day, you want to be selective about what you're allowing on your calendar. And leverage the stuff out that isn't as important. Find a person or a system or something to be able to leverage that out too. And always, always, always time block your big rocks first, your 20%, because that will ensure your success, right? And my golden rule, and I'm famous for this. So who's got their lead gen done for today? Anybody? You've got yours done for today. Awesome. Okay. Is there anyone in the room who has already maybe put off something that was on their calendar for today and they need to do it do it later? Yeah, that happens a lot. Happens a lot in my world. So if you erase, you must replace, right? So if you had lead gen blocked off for 2 hours this morning and you haven't done it yet, it doesn't mean that, oh, I'll make it up, you know. No, you gotta replace it at some point in time, whether it's you're tacking it on to the end of today or you're adding an extra 2 hours to tomorrow, right? So if you erase it, you want to replace it. All right, so protect your time. They say create a bunker, store provisions, sweep for mines, enlist support, right? So they suggest when you do your time blocking, and this is, for me, this is very true. I want to have a space where I have got all of my stuff, right? I've built a bunker, so there's no reason for me to have to leave this bunker until my lead gen is done. So I've got my snacks, my bottled water, I've got my, my iPhone, my laptop, whatever it is I need in order to be able to get that lead generation done. And then sweeping for mines, distractions. Maybe it's a laptop if I'm making calls for the afternoon. Can that be a distraction? Oh, let me see what's on Facebook really quicker. Oh, somebody just shot me. Oh, ooh, there's just all kinds of things that can be distracting you. So make sure that you're sweeping for mines. And then when they talk about enlist support, make sure that there are people in your life who are making sure that you're staying true to what you said you're going to do, right? When I used to work from home and I had time blocking time, my kids I would get them to buy into, the concept and what it was I was doing. And if I came out of the office, they'll say, have you set your appointments yet for the day? Right back in I'd go, right? So get the buy-in from family, whoever your support system is. All right, E to P, we're going to get through the last of these pretty quickly because we've got about 10 minutes left here and I want to be respectful of your guys' time. So being very purposeful and going from entrepreneurial to purposeful, and that has to do with writing your goals down, which is what we've already talked about, attending trainings, right? Identifying accountability partners and mentors, installing systems. That's a huge one. I struggle with this because I'm not being techie does not come natural to me. And so having to rely on systems and having to learn those systems, or likely what I am more likely to do is leverage that out and have someone create those systems for me, or show me the shortcuts and how to work in the systems so that I don't have to take the painful time that's necessary to learn them from the ground up. So having those systems in place is important. Learning-based individual, I mean, that's just sort of self-explanatory, but always being that person that's thirsty for that knowledge and pursuing, additional tools and training in your life that will help you just elevate what you're already doing, and open up additional opportunities for yourself. So high achievers reach their goals by making training, education, self-development the foundational piece of their action plan. Boy, is that true, right? Making sure that you are always seeking and looking for those sorts of opportunities. So that's what we're really attempting to do here in 2019 in the Market Center, is creating that learning-based environment for you guys through things like master faculty and improving the training calendar and making sure that we're getting your buy-in and the fact that we want your feedback on the things that you're wanting to see. And my goodness, we have a whole library, that has been written by Gary Keller and others in his life that we can, tap into and take part in. Who in here has read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Yeah? Anyone in here read it more than once or twice? I mean, that's something that you can probably crack open and reread, at least I would say once a year. But again, these are awesome tools and resources. Anyone in here doing MAPS coaching? Anyone have a coach of any kind? Yeah? Okay. How's that going? How has that changed your business? When did you hire your coach? Let's rewind.
I started MAPS coaching in February at the last meeting, so 16.
Okay. So 2 years ago.
So 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then the first coach ended, she was done in July, and then I started coaching with this guy. And I really bought into it last year.
And what has your business done this year?
It doubled.
It doubled.
Last year.
So you bought into the coaching and the accountability, and your business doubled. Who in here would like to have their business double this year? Anybody? Yeah. Would you say, and it doesn't have to be, MAPS coaching right out of the gate, you guys, right? You could look at the training that's happening here in the Market Center as part of your coaching. You could look at going to the regional events that we bring to, Minnesota as part of your coaching. You could look at aligning yourself with an accountability partner as part of your coaching. So it's picking something and doing something rather than nothing at all. Thinking, it's kind of like when I never used to offer staging services on all my listings because, boy, that sounds really expensive. Same with coaching. Boy, that sounds really expensive. Well, get creative. There are all kinds of things that you can do and ways that you can go about improving yourself, other than, paying $1,000 a month for a MAPS coach. And when you get to that point, pay the $1,000 a month for a MAPS coach because it's worth it. All right. We already talked about goal sharing. Some of this stuff is kind of redundant. Really committing to learning, removing your limiting beliefs. This is a tough one. I feel like this is an everyday challenge for me as well. And it is beliefs sometimes that hold me back from doing things or accomplishing goals that I want to set for myself. So think of a time in your life, if you want, guys can take a minute, when you've had a limiting belief that you needed to remove. And is there anyone in here that is willing to share how you did that? And also then the second part of that question is, what new successes came your way once you removed that limiting belief? Anybody want to share?
I'll share. I think learning what those limiting beliefs are. I hit a point in my life where I had to make a decision, and leaving behind 28 years in education to focus on real estate, never thought that I could do that. But Keller Williams has instilled a belief system in me that I totally get, that my success is contingent only upon myself and what I'm willing to embrace. And Keller Williams, it's not rocket scientist. Every tool is here to get wherever it is that I want to be.
So how were you able to do that? How were you able to finally remove that limiting
By
belief?
participating in everything, Kate, everything
Just
that I
jumping in?
can. Because some things, when I, first came, I heard about family reunion, but it just wasn't anything that I could do. And then all of a sudden, when I left the school district, and it's like, oh, I can do this. And so I did do this. Bold. It took me a lot of years to get to Bold. Bold changed my life. It changes the way that you look at things. And then the things you look at, everything changes. It's just listening to the KW, the culture within, going to everything. I mean, the regional events, the training, the fact that the trainers, I mean, every event that you go to and you learn from are all by people that have been there, done that, and now here they are. So,
have you guys ever fought something so hard in life and then finally gave into it, and then when you got to the other side, you were like, oh my gosh, why was I fighting that so hard? I should have done this years ago. This is so amazing. This makes my life so much easier. Yeah? I think probably everyone in here has probably done that with something at some point in life, right? One of the things that I think of was I always hated the word script, like scripts. I don't want to sound scripted. I don't want to sound like that quintessential salesperson, right, that everybody runs from when they walk into the room. And so I avoided scripts like the plague. I thought, I've got the gift of gab. I'll just use my natural talents. And, those served me well, but they only got me so far. Your natural talents and abilities will only get you so far. And, excuse me, I, like you, Michelle, just kept pouring myself. I just did it is how I got through it, right? I just did. I kept pouring myself into trainings and showing up at trainings, and they kept just talking about. And I just thought, okay, enough already. I'm going to give this a try. And at first it was just incredibly uncomfortable because they didn't sound at all like me. I didn't write them. Someone else did. And then I just decided one day to deconstruct them, not completely, but just flip a couple of words to make them sound more like something I would say or something more authentic that would come from me. And I'll never forget the first time I called. It was an expired listing, and it was like an $800,000 listing, which made me even more nervous because it was a high-end listing. And then I just had a conversation with myself and said, well, if I'm nervous calling these high-end listings, that means probably the majority of other agents are nervous, which means when I call, I'm probably competing with fewer people because, most folks are going to call, the more reasonably priced homes. They just don't have the confidence, right, to call the upper end homes. And so I thought, well, what do I have to lose? Like, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen to me? And when I do a training session on calling expireds, that's the question that I ask people. What is the absolute worst thing that could happen to you if you make that phone call?
Funny you say that about the high-end listing, because what I was taught from years ago